Started here. Hit record. Okay. So thank you for coming today to the Coordinated Human Service Mobility Plan, the FY25 Regional Coordination Meeting for the Southwest region. My name's Jess Maffey. I'm a Transit Programs Manager with the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation. And the first thing we're going to go through, we're going to go to slide 2, housekeeping slide, if you're following along. Just a few notes. Please remain on mute for the presentation. I will pause a couple times for questions. At that point, you can use the raise hand feature at the top of your screen, or you can put questions in the chat as we go along and we can address those. There's also going to be an interactive portion at the end. We'll just be going through and doing introductions briefly. And at that time, I'll have a list of all of you and I will call on you and you can unmute. So I'll be calling on you. You don't have to worry about trying to go in order. I'll also invite you to turn your cameras on at that time. You're welcome to keep your camera on or off for the rest of the presentation. It's totally up to you. This webinar and each regional webinar is being recorded, and DRPT will post the recordings on our YouTube page and it will be sent out to all of you. So if you had anyone who missed the meeting or want someone else to see it, you'll get that recording, and you will also receive these slides with the links embedded. So I've embedded information throughout these slides that you'll be able to access, including the CHSM plan itself. So this will all be there and available for you. For those of you who are 5310 agencies or human services agencies that are planning to apply for the FY25 application, this meeting attendance does count toward points on your application, and I have the list of registrants. So again, if for some reason you didn't register for the event and were invited, go ahead and just shoot me a message if I just to make sure I didn't miss you, but I should have all of you on here. All right, quickly getting to the meeting agenda for today. After this slide, we're going to do I went to slide 3, the meeting agenda slide. After this, we're going to do a quick group introduction in the chat, and I'll give you some instruction for that. We're then going to go into, on a high level, what is a coordinated human services mobility plan. We're going to go over, what it is on the FTA level, what are the requirements that DRPT is required to follow to create the plan, as well as the format it's in. Then we're going to go into the 2022 plan. This is the most recent update to the plan, which is really an update to the 2019 plan. So we're going to talk about both of those, including what's new in this year's plan. And we're also going to go through how to use the plan, how DRPT uses it, and how you all can use it. We're then going to do an intro to the CHSM story map. So this is actually a new feature as part of the 2022 plan. It's an online interactive format for the CHSM plan. And I have my coworker Grace here from DRPT to introduce that to you all. And we're going to go through some items about that, how to get to it, and where to find the action tracker and some of those features that we'd like you to use. And then at the very end, we're going to go ahead and have a quick interactive roundtable of introductions. And I'll call on each of you to introduce yourselves. And if you're applying to 5310, let us know what you're planning on applying for, what your project will be. I'm going to go to the next slide, slide 4. Now I'm going to give you all a few minutes to please introduce yourselves in the chat. If possible, please group all of this information together into one message so that Grace can keep it straight for me when I go to read you off. So in one message in the chat, which can be found, well, actually it might be at the bottom of your screen, it's at the top of mine. But in the chat, if you could please drop in your name, title, the organization you're with, where your organization is located, and your email address. If you don't want to share your contact information, that's okay, but I'm asking for it partially because I'm gonna share all this info with the whole group after this meeting, so you all can connect with each other if you need each other's contact info. So let's just take a minute. I'll let you all fill that in the chat, and then we'll move on in just a moment. All right, looks like we got several people that put their interest in the chat. If you're still working on it, no worries. I'm just going to move on and keep going through the presentation, but you can feel free to drop those in there as we go along. So I'm going on to slide 5. If you're following along, I wanted to go through quickly, what is a coordinated human services plan? I know a lot of people, for some people, this is old hat, but I know there's always turnover, and it's good to get a refresher on what this is and why exactly we're doing it, what it involves. So the Coordinated Human Service Mobility Plan is a federal requirement as part of the FTA Section 5310 program, and DRPT is the lead agency for developing this plan for most of Virginia. The requirement for Section 5310 is that we, DRPT, creates a plan that assesses current services and transportation needs of seniors, defined as people 65 years of age or older, and people with disabilities. The plan is also meant to identify strategies to address service gaps and set priorities for project implementation throughout the state. These are high-level, statewide strategies and information that's meant to kind of give us a full picture of what the state is, what challenges there are, and what suggestions or strategies we might have to help address those challenges. The urbanized areas of Northern Virginia around DC are included in a plan developed and maintained by the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. MWCOG receives funding to support localities in Northern Virginia. So any locality that COGS receive funding for is not eligible for funding through DRPT. So this is just a note. I know you all are out in the Southwest region. You're not super close to DC, and it's not a big concern, but just so you know, DRPT only manages funding for the entirety of the state besides Northern Virginia. That is managed by MWCOG, and they create their own CHSM plan. All right, moving on to slide 6. The FTA requirements, they require that the CHSM plan has to include input from the people it covers, which includes individuals with disabilities and seniors. It also has to include input from representatives from public, private, and nonprofit transportation agencies, human service providers, and other members of the public. For this plan in particular, there's a strong focus at the federal level on coordination and collaboration. And the plan is meant to bring together all the stakeholders in an area to ensure that individuals who need transportation are getting it and that services are not being duplicated within an area. So when you hear us emphasize coordination and collaboration, that's because it's really just coming straight down from the FTA. And that's why we sort of try to put all these strategies together in one place. The plan follows a federally mandated update schedule, which includes a minor update every 3 years and a major update every 6 years. So we just completed the minor update, which provided the main updates were to demographics data. We also had a couple surveys with new survey results we included, and we also updated the action tracker based on those surveys. So that's the 2022 plan that we're going over today. The next major update is going to be in 2025. So that will be that kind of more thorough overhaul, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this process in a minute. Going on to slide 7, the plan format. Typically, the plan has been one document covering the entire state. It includes a summary of statewide demographics, available transportation, needs and gaps in services, and strategies to address those needs and gaps. It also contains regional elements that address the unique challenges, needs, and goals of a single region. So we're in the Southwest region, but there are 5 other regions identified throughout the state. This was begun in 2019, and like I mentioned, the 2022 plan is really just an update to the 2019 plan, so we're following a very similar format. This is meant to demonstrate statewide challenges as well as regional challenges, the way that we've formatted the plan. Now I want to just point out this picture to the right. This is, you can see my little click icon there. If once you get these slides, if you click on that, that will take you to the PDF version of the CHSM plan. So that's right there for you, and it's available on our website now. However, this 2022 update also includes a story map version of the plan. If you're not familiar with the story map, it's no problem. We're going to walk you through it today, but basically it's a function created through ArcGIS that allows us to present a narrative document while also embedding data into interactive maps that give a lot more in-depth detail. So we're excited to demo that for you today. Moving on to slide 8. Again, I know I keep mentioning the 2019 plan, but that's kind of where we started out. And so if any of you weren't around for the creation of that, just wanted to quickly recap what we started out with in 2019. So in 2019, they identified 6 regions for the state that follow the Department of Medical Assistance Services, or DMAS's regions for medical providers. So you can see right at the top here, this is actually the DMAS map and the way that they divided the state regionally. And at the bottom here is the CHSM map. And, we're here in the Southwest region. This is the area it covers, and the rest of the regions follow exactly along with that map. It was meant to be sort of understandable to people who provide Medicaid services, since it follows the same regions. The 2019 plan, they conducted a study involving surveys, interviews, ride-alongs, public meetings that helped identify those statewide needs and gaps in services. This was a much more thorough process of interviews and involved a much longer time frame of gathering all of that feedback together. The plan also identified underserved populations beyond 5310. This included low-income people, veterans, homeless folks, and youth. It also identified gaps specific to each region and recommended strategies through an action tracker. So the action tracker is what you'd be familiar with if you've applied for 5310. That kind of lists those individual items that you would reference on your application, and we're going to get into that today. It also identified major statewide recommendations for coordination across all groups, including DRPT. So it gave us recommendations as well as an agency. All right, going on to slide number 9. For the 2022 update, again, we built off the 2019 plan. We used the same regions, we used the same populations and providers, but we updated the demographic data based on most recent census information. For this plan, what was new to this plan is that we included and analyzed rider and provider surveys. This was 2 surveys that hopefully some of you participated in and probably sent out to your clients or people you serve. These were 2 online surveys that the master's group from BCU helped us conduct. And we took in all that data and sort of analyzed it, summarized it, including in this plan. So as a result, actually, of particularly the rider survey, we ended up adding a new category to the action tracker based on those results, and we'll get into that in more detail. And then, as I've mentioned, we added a public-facing story map version of the plan to our GIS library. So this, again, you can see my little click button here. If you click on this image when you get the slides, that will take you to the story map on DRPT's website. And Grace is going to talk about this a little bit more here in a minute, but basically the story map online it contains all the same information as the PDF version. It's just laid out in online format, and each of these little boxes here represent chapters. So we'll go through that with you all. Finally, I'm gonna pause here on slide 10 and take a little time to go through how to use the plan. So I'm going to talk about how DRPT uses the plan, as well as how you all should use the plan as applicants to 5310. So DRPT uses the CHSM plan to guide our investments in Virginia's transportation services that are designed to specifically meet the needs of seniors, individuals with disabilities, and other priority populations. This plan is meant to be a living document that can be updated on an ongoing basis to account for the changes in technology, new challenges that come up, and successes that we see around the state. DRPT expects that our grantees will take an active role in implementing projects that advance mobility for all Virginians, and will continue to support these projects as best we can through the 5310 program. This plan, however, does not prescribe funding, nor will there, as you well know, ever be sufficient funding through DRPT's programs to fund every single recommendation. Organizations working to further transportation should continue to explore other funding opportunities with local, state, and federal agencies, as well as community organizations. Getting into how you all should use the plan. As I mentioned, the plan provides many areas of high-level information. But the idea is that when you're reviewing it, that some challenges or opportunities may stick out to you based on what you know about your region, your partners, or even your potential partners. The first bullet there says the plan identifies statewide and cross-regional challenges. This plan, at a very basic level, demonstrates that a problem in one area is likely a problem in another area. There just might be a few different types of obstacles in each region. So just to give a few examples of statewide challenges, and these are particularly you all will know these well, but I'm going to list them anyway. There are long driving distances in rural areas. This is a statewide challenge across the state. There's many different types of rural areas that we have. For you all, it may be snow and mountains, driving long distances. In Hampton roads in the southern region, it might be tidal flooding, things shutting down roads that way. But overall, it's a similar challenge. Another challenge is that public transportation doesn't always cross locality lines. So there's several examples out there of, transit agencies, someone getting to the end of a transit route line and needing to walk to a facility just to make that final few miles or yards, whatever it is. There have been some cross-agency collaborations that have been able to meet these challenges. One example was a collaboration between WADA and Hampton Roads Transit. They were actually able to form a cooperation and use a federal grant to connect two bus lines to a clinic, a medical clinic, so that people weren't having to get off the bus and walk to this clinic. This wasn't a 5310 project, but that is the sort of thing we're talking about when we start talking about collaboration. It's like, okay, what are these shared issues and where are these gaps developing, and maybe how can we come together to help solve that problem? And another statewide challenge is just that the cost of transportation is prohibitive for some individuals, particularly for those who need more than one trip every now and then. So a low-income individual who doesn't own a car but needs to still go to work every day, or someone who needs dialysis 3 times a week and lives in a rural area, those trips can be extremely cost prohibitive for people. So then those are just things happening all over the state. And there's many more, or several more challenges like that listed in the plan. The plan also provides ideas for how agencies can seek out different sources of funding and or collaborate with other groups to provide services. So I'm going to go through a few examples here. One is just looking at additional federal funding, and that may not be your agency, but it could be, looking at what DRPT is doing, or a bigger transit provider, or a planning district commission. seeing if there's other FTA funding out there that other groups are eligible to apply for and that you could benefit from. It could also mean coordinating across state and federal programs, which could mean different things depending on different agencies. One thing that we look at, for example, is community services boards often receive funds through the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services, and some of them use those funds for transportation. So, are there opportunities for DRPT to work with DBHDS or other state programs to kind of consolidate funding? Not necessarily saying that you all would be the jumping off point for that, but if it's something that is brought to your attention, you can bring it to our attention because DRPT needs to look for those opportunities as well. Use of TNCs or transportation network companies. I know in more rural areas, this may or may not necessarily be realistic, but things change all the time. But Uber and Lyft are out there, but also TNCs like Userve. That's something that GRTC in Richmond, for example, has been using to augment its paratransit service, and it's been going really well, and it provides a different kind of service. So again, these are things that DRPT is interested in, if those are available in your area, or there's opportunities to look for different ways to provide service. Finally, on a more practical note, the plan is meant to help particularly 5310 eligible agencies to guide you in understanding what DRPT is interested in funding. As I said, it doesn't prescribe what we fund, as in that if you have a project that's not perfectly in line with the strategies laid out in this plan, that doesn't mean you're ineligible or you're going to be rejected. But hopefully what it's meant to do is give you a more in-depth picture of what DRPT has identified as important in your region. So, when you do apply as a 5310, you'll also have a couple of questions you have to fill out about the plan and indicate which action tracker goals that your project ties to. So at the bare minimum, we hope, in addition to this meeting, that you will kind of go through, review the plan or look at your region and just think about how your project is going to tie into these overall strategies for the state or for your region. And finally, part of this plan is these meetings. So, we ask you to attend, we tie it to your application, and it's really because it's just once a year, we want to bring the groups in your region together to at least meet up with each other and put some names to faces. If there's new people coming in or other people going out, it's just one time a year that we can come together. And again, I'll share all of our contact information. So if there's someone out there you'd like to connect with, you'll get that here. All right, I'm going to go to slide 11, but ultimately I'm going to have Grace take over here and walk us through the story map navigation and some points in there. So take it away.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Grace Stankus. I am a transit planner at DRPT, and I assisted Jess with this CHSM plan update, primarily through the sort of creation of the story map. Can everybody hear me okay and also see my screen? Okay. Okay, so I know Jess sent a link to the story map, and then once she makes this PowerPoint available, you'll also be able to access it through those slides. But I'm just going to go over another way that you're able to access the CHSM plan story map version. So if you go to DRPT's website, drpt.virginia.gov, and you hover over our grant programs and go down to the third one, the Human Services Grant Program in the list, and click that. This page, I'm sure you're familiar with it. It has all the information you need for your application, but if you scroll down to the bottom, you will see the PDF version of the plan update here. And then the third link is the CHSM story map link. So I'm going to click that. And this brings you to the main sort of landing page for this plan. And as just mentioned, like this has the same exact information as the PDF version. It just displays the data a little bit differently and is a little bit more interactive than what you get with a kind of a paper static copy. And so I'm going to go into the statewide profile just to show a little bit about what this offers and how it differs from the PDF version. And so again, all of the writing is the same between this and the PDF version, but where it differs is we have here a statewide map once it loads. There's a lot going on. A statewide map of the senior demographics in throughout the entire state. And so this is a little interactive in the way that you can zoom in and out and click on individual counties to get the population information for that particular county. And you can also zoom in a little bit further to get data for individual census tracts. So this can be useful as you work on your applications just to sort of get a better idea of like the population. This is using data from the 2020 census. And so we have that for the senior population, the populations with the disability. It's the same thing. It's kind of scaled how the map loads and the different information in the pop-ups. We also have sort of beyond the 5310 demographics or populations, we have other characteristics that impact mobility. So we have populations in poverty, and to view that geospatial data, you could click on this link, and it works the same, I'm sorry, on this button, and it works the same where you can zoom in and out and sort of explore the data that way. We have zero-car households, the Vulnerable Populations Index, which was developed for a previous DRPT study. It combines these different groups and comes up with an index of who's where the most vulnerable populations are located. So we can view that data. And then there's also, we have veteran status, internet access, and technology access. And so just for some sort of general functionality of how to navigate this story map, the chapters are located up here. And so once you're done with an individual chapter, you can either choose to go to a new chapter up here with this list, or you can click on this top left button and go back to the main page and click into a new chapter that way. And so I will go into the action tracker chapter here. And so we have definitions for each of the identified gaps from the previous 2019 plan and then the 2022 plan. These were determined through the outreach and surveys. And so you can click into each definition this way, or you can just continue to scroll down. And you can access the action tracker, which again has the same information as the table in the PDF version of the plan, but this is just slightly more interactive where you can select by a gap. So if you would like to select by a funding gap, it will just show you the individual action items associated with that gap. And then you can also select by goal. So say your goal is to improve the rider experience, you can click in there, and that will just bring up the action items associated with improving the rider experience. And so this is just like a different way to kind of interact with the action tracker. Jess is going to discuss it a little bit more in a bit, but this is probably, you know, something you'll be looking towards while you're filling out your applications. And then we also have developed individual regional profiles for each of the 6 CHSM regions, and this hopefully will be a good resource for you all. So we can click into the Southwest region. And again, similarly to the PDF, everything is laid out in the same order. We have this regional profile, which has a little bit of an overview of the Southwest region. But where it differs is, and once this map loads, you're able to click in and view the transit service that's available in the Southwest region. This is public transit service. And so we have Virginia Breeze, microtransit, and the transit routes and demand response. And so you're able to pan around and see what's available. So if I click here, I can see that there's a 4-county route in Russell County, or I can see the individual stops that are in the town of Lebanon. I can also see demand response service areas. And so this is a good way, as you coordinate with one another, just to see what's available where. And so continuing on, similarly to the statewide profile, we also have regional demographics, which has the same information that was available at the statewide level, but this is just more focused in on the region itself. And so again, you can click in and see demographic data for individual census tracts. Again, we have it with population with a disability. And we also have the additional demographics that were in the statewide profile: population and poverty, veteran status, vehicle access, internet access, technology access, and then that VPI again. And so these all have their own individual pop-ups. Some have more information than others. And so this is just kind of a fun way to interact with the data that's just more exciting than looking at it on a paper plan. And then we also have the regional issues section, which these are the issues that came about with the outreach done in the 2019 plan, and then any new issues that kind of surfaced with the outreach done for the 2022 update. And so this table, this is the same as what is in the PDF plan. And it just kind of gives like a closer look at the regional issues and some strengths. And then finally, for each region, we have the high priority action items, and Jess will speak to these a little bit more, but these were just things that continually came up with the outreach. And so we've kind of just have them all here so you can see what is sort of considered a high priority action item. And then finally, just a link to get back to the action tracker as you're working through your application. And so again, hopefully this is, I think our goal is that this is just a resource that you can use not only for the 5310 applications, but for other grants that you work on and other projects. And this can be something that you kind of can share and refer back to as needed. I realize that was a lot of information, so we can stop here for questions if anybody has any about the general functionality of how this, how to navigate this plan.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, but again, I can also go through any navigation if anyone, just wants a refresh of how to get to anything. Let's pull this up. Oops, that is not the correct screen. Sorry about that. All right, here we go. All right, so I'm just going to kind of pick up where Grace left off, and I'm going to go back into that statewide action tracker to talk about that in a little more depth. So I just wanted to talk through this to give you a complete picture of all the gaps and goals that we've identified. And you saw when Grace took you into the Southwest region, the priority items that were pulled out of this overall statewide tracker. Ultimately, your project should align with any of these goals or action items, not necessarily just the ones that are prioritized for your region. That's just something we're looking at in your application, whether you're addressing a priority one or not. But again, this is not prescriptive. We're not gonna, it's not like you're gonna be rejected if you don't address the priority item. It's really, what makes sense that connects to to your project. So I am going to go through and read through each one of these, which should hopefully give you an idea of how we're thinking about the gaps. However, you can always go back through and read the chapter here for a more in-depth explanation of how those were determined. I also do want to mention that it doesn't matter how many action items you list in your application. It's not about quantity, it's more about quality. It's whether you can justify how your project is aligning with that action item. So don't get too caught up in doing as many as you can, because realistically, the point is for the project to do what you're saying it's going to do. It's not that you're doing everything under the sun. So let me just pop this out. And I'm going to go ahead and read through each of these gaps and the related goals and action items. So for the first gap, we've got trip availability. This is expanding service availability. And under this, we've got expanding after-hours transportation service. We've got increasing the availability of long-distance trips. And we've got expanding trip types to better meet rider needs. Under trip accessibility, this is kind of a basic thing, but an important one that I know a lot of y'all deal with, improving access to human service transportation. So providing transportation to seniors and people with disabilities who cannot use public transportation or who live in an area where it's not available. It could be enhancing scheduling, making it easier for them to get access to transportation through whatever types of scheduling that you have. It could also be exploring the feasibility for expanded door-to-door service. If people need that extra care, whether that's able to be added to your services or expanded. Trip reliability. I want to pause here on this gap because this is the new one I mentioned that we found as a result of those rider surveys as part of the 2022 plan update. So when we were analyzing the survey results from riders, we were finding that the idea of a rider experience kept coming up a lot. And it seemed to, overlap with other categories here, but also have its own nuance. So riders were using words like reliability a lot, as well as things like cleanliness, friendliness of the drivers, or talking about their experiences using technology to schedule, whether that was a positive experience or a negative experience. So right now, some of these action items are exactly the same or very similar to ones you'll see in other categories. But the idea is if you indicate this on your project, that just indicates to us that your project is thinking about rider experience overall and how it ties into that. So I just wanted to point that out. The goal here is improving the experience. This could include things like implementing standardized education and training for operators to make sure they can, provide the same type of aid to their passengers or client-specific types of aid. It could be increasing staffing so that operators can better meet passengers' scheduling needs. That's kind of that reliability question of are things on time or inconsistent. And finally, exploring implementing improved public-facing technologies such as scheduling software or apps that's made to be user-friendly, or any other type of sort of more user-friendly or accessible scheduling that helps improve the rider experience. Under the gap of service alternatives, the goal here is to expand transportation options. So this is really about that collaboration piece, or looking for partners. This could be partnering with public transportation providers to determine opportunities for maybe route modification, deviated fixed route usage, or other service alterations that could help benefit your clients. It could be partnerships with places like hospitals or medical facilities to see how transportation services could help those organizations. Similarly, with community colleges or educational facilities to see if they need transportation options or your organization can help with if they have disabled students or older adults as part of their educational population. It could also be to continue exploring the role of TNCs and see how that plays into expanded transportation options in your region. Under the gap of coordination, the goal here is increasing statewide and regional coordination. So this is not just you all, but it's also us at DRPT and other statewide partners. So for some of you, it could be working with your local jurisdiction to include human services transportation into local transportation planning. So I kind of think of that as like the advocacy route, getting human services out there and noticed by local jurisdictions. On the DRPT side, in 2019, we had developed a statewide a statewide advisory committee, and had recommendations for regional advisory committees as well to focus on coordination. That's something that kind of went away during the pandemic, but it's something we're looking at again as, trying to figure out what would be the goals or the outcomes of a group like that. And finally, continuing communications, as I know many people do, with other groups that support transportation in Virginia, such as CTAV or VAM, the Virginia Association of Mobility Managers, or other groups like that that are out there. Under education and training, this is the one with the most goals and action items, but basically, we've got the internal the external goal of increasing awareness of available services, and then the internal goal of providing education and training for staff and riders. So under, the external goal, if it's, developing more outreach or analysis of customer satisfaction through things like surveys. It's focusing on marketing efforts, or developing other materials to maybe reach more populations, or inform people of what services you have. On the internal side, it could be expanding your training opportunities to operators to ensure they have, again, proper training and resources to provide aid to their passengers, kind of similar to that rider experience idea. It could also be setting up standards for service providers or mobility managers that could include nationally recognized training courses. It could also include the idea of travel training for new riders. So a lot of different things in there to think about. We also added one under increased safety and preparedness of establishing a pandemic preparedness plan. Again, this comes from 2019. And this was just a recommendation that came out of what was going on at that time. Finally, on the transportation gap of funding, we've got the goal that sort of feeds into all other goals, which is increasing sustainable funding streams. Under this, we've got increasing funding for labor to recruit and retain operators and staff, exploring and applying for alternative funding sources beyond 5310. So, looking at other DRPT grants potentially, but definitely community grants, or even nationwide grants that are out there that fund transportation or other things for your program that could include transportation. And then similarly to what I mentioned before, continuing to work with local and regional government to increase available funds for human services transportation, so that advocacy piece. All right, so all that being said, I'm going to pause again real quick, and I'm going to go back to my presentation. But if anyone has a question right now before we get into the roundtable of introductions, let me know. All right. Can everyone see my presentation again? Yep. Okay, great. Okay, so for this part, like I mentioned, I'm going to call on everyone individually. If you would like to turn your camera on, it's not required, but when you speak, you're welcome to pop in and show your face. But I have a list of you all in the chat. I'm just going to go through first the groups that I know would be applying for 5310. I'll call on you all first to introduce yourselves and your agency and just briefly talk about what you're applying for in your project. And then anyone else who's on the call, or anyone I don't recognize or I'm not sure about, I'll call on you, and you can just let us know if you're planning on applying, or just at least introduce yourself and the group you're with. So let me go ahead and start out here. I guess I'm just gonna call on District 3 Government Cooperative Mountain Links, Melanie. Oh, Melanie having an issue. Yeah, Melanie, go ahead and drop it in the chat and I'll read it out just once you're ready. But I'll just move on for right now. Thank you. Okay, next up we got Mount Rogers, Michael Duncan. And you got to unmute yourself, sorry.
How's that?
Great, I can hear you.
So I'm Michael Duncan. I'm the fleet manager now for Mount Rogers. I've been on board for about a year, so all this is new to me. Looking back, I don't guess we've done a grant 5310 in a couple of years for Mount Rogers, so we are excited to get back on board. We have a fleet of about 200 vehicles. About 10% of that are the 5310 vehicles. Our agency has changed a little bit. We've split some of the departments between IDC into day support. So the activities have changed a little bit internally, but the needs are growing daily. People getting older, non-drivers. I was at the DMV today and there was a gentleman there that had got a letter from the DMV and he has to drive the Vinton to prove that he can still drive medically. He has no way to get there. He has no family, nothing. And the DMV looked at me and said, "Hey, Michael, can y'all help this guy out?" And unfortunately, we don't deal with outside the population, but hopefully we can get him something through the veteran services. But the needs are just increasing daily at a high demand. So we're excited to be back on board.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you coming in. All right, next we've got Junction Center for Independent Living, Christy, if you're here. And if you're talking, I can't hear you. But I can come back around. Okay, yep, you can drop in the chat, Christy. Thank you. I'll read yours out as well. I'm gonna keep going for now. Giles, Health and Family, Andy.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Oh, good. Hey, I'm Andy Wilburn with Giles Health and Family, and we rely on the 5310 mainly for vehicles, and we'll look to do vehicle replacements this year. We have in the past relied on local grants for our operations, and this year's have been unsuccessful in some of the grants in the past. So I hope to apply for some operating funds this year to help make up for that shortfall. And I'll be getting some advice from you, Jess, at some point. You and I can talk. I hope to see the best way to do that and talk about some of our strategies and some of our shortcomings. I really screwed your grant up last year. I think you are aware of that. My first go around last year writing the grant. So I hope to do learn from my bruises from last year.
No worries.
That's kind of our story this year.
Sounds good. And yeah, no problem. You can always reach out to me to schedule something, and I'm happy to talk.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. All right. AASC 4-County Transit, Joe.
Hi, my name is Joe Ratliff, of course. We're a 5311 public transit agency. We don't have a plan to apply for 5310 funding, but I like to attend these to to coordinate, connect with the area transportation providers and to stay involved and see what everybody else is doing.
Definitely. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it, Joe.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and read Melanie. So this is Melanie Fleenor from Mountain Links District 3 Governmental Cooperative. She says we typically fund our services with 5307 and 5311 funding and have some internal contracts with human service agencies. I mainly attend these meetings to learn what other agencies are doing and see what is working and what we could improve. All right, thank you, Melanie. Appreciate you coming through as well. All right, let's see. We've got, go ahead and call on Miak. Mitch, if you're here, or Stephanie, if you want to introduce yourselves.
Hello, I'm Mitch Elliott. I'm the transit director at Mountain Empire Older Citizens, and I'll speak for me and Stephanie unless she wants to speak for herself. we are 5311 public transit too, and but we do apply for mobility management, but a lot of times that is pushed over to 5311 capital since there's only so much money to go around. But we do use mobility management to help us coordinate throughout the region. And we're on the Tennessee border. We coordinate with them, and a lot of the hospitals in our area have combined, and they've moved a lot of the specialty appointments are now in Tennessee, and then of course we try to work with the VA to get people to the center in Johnson City.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you, Mitch. I appreciate you sharing that. Okay, I think let's see. I've got Blacksburg Transit and NRV MPO. Eric, if you'd like to share.
Yeah, hi, I'm Eric Olson with Blacksburg Transit, and I'm co-funded by our MPO, which is the Metropolitan Planning Organization. So we mostly do public transit, but we do have, as the MPO, my MPO piece, we help manage our plans every year, and we have New River Valley Community Services, which has been around for a long time, and they've been doing 5310 for a while. And they coordinate as much as they can with, private and other medical people as well. And then just new this year, New River Valley Senior Services, which is a similar acronym, is applying for paratransit and mobility management funding. So that's sort of a new thing for us to help administer, although they have been doing senior services for years and years and years, and they coordinate the Pulaski area transit services also, which is all pretty much van-based. And a lot of it is demand response-ish. They have some fixed routes now too, but that's sort of the two groups that we help work with. Of course, Blackbird Transit does paratransit, and so does Radford Transit as well, in some degree, in that they run vans and that are all accessible, that kind of thing. But those are the two that we mainly work with.
Okay. Yeah, they were in the Allegheny region meeting, so I know, I mean, it's not perfect, our regional divisions, because I know you guys work across large areas, but we heard from them as well. So appreciate
That's great. There's a lot to learn, as you know. Every year it changes a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for coming in.
Yep.
All right. I wanted to go ahead and read Christie's Junction Center for Independent Living. Christy Coomer said, "We have used 5310 in the past to obtain our accessible vans. It's been quite a few years since we've made any replacements, so we may be interested in doing that. We provide a lot of transportation to the Tri-Cities of Tennessee and surrounding areas, so it's very easy to rack up miles wear and tear on those vehicles." Yeah, definitely. We hear that all the time, and I know a lot of people have been waiting on vehicles. I think we're all familiar with that story right now. So great. Yeah, that's great, Christy. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to set up a call with me to discuss. All right. I believe I got everyone on my list. If there's anyone I missed, if you want to raise your hand or unmute, I'll just give us a second here. I think I got everyone. All right. Okay, I think we're good. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up, but want to let you guys know that the web grants registration training is being hosted by DRPT on October 30th and 31st. Web grants is our new upcoming system for all applications. So for my 5311s, 5307s, this is for you as well. those will be coming up. I think an email just went out yesterday or today about the registration for that. That's going to be, Olga going away, and Web Grants is replacing it for applications this year. My pre-application workshop for 5310 is on November 1st. And then the FY25 application for 5310 will open December 1st and close February 1st. And I'll provide these slides to everyone, and I'm going to have links embedded here with links to those registrations. So you don't have to worry about searching for your email through your emails for those. Finally, if you all want to connect with each other, or even, reach out to me and get some more information, I'm going to use this information you put in the chats and send out your emails and names to everyone, so you all have that for each other. And finally, of course, if you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to me. There's my email and my number, and I'm always happy to set up a call. So yeah, thank you so much for attending today. If anyone has any questions, you're welcome to stay on, but otherwise I'll let you go with a minute to spare. So thank you for coming out today.
Thank you.
Thank you.